Hey and welcome back to Cherished Cars. If you've seen the first video in this series, you'll know that we're working on a 2013 Vauxhall Insignia. It's got about 108,000 miles on the clock. And there's a few jobs that need doing, but the first and most critical one is going to be the rear discs, which on the passenger side are actually down to bare metal. So we're going to change the pads and discs. I've got a boot full of bits and pieces that need to go on the car. However, we're going to start off with the pads and discs. I've taken out some of the kit out of that boot and put the tools in there for the job we're going to do, so I'm going to show you that in a second. But before we do anything else, I'm going to get the car ready to jack up. Because we're working on the back, I want to take the handbrake off, but I also want to put it into first gear just to make sure it doesn't roll, even though we're on a flat surface. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so what's in the boot? We have got our new rear pads, and we've got two new discs, so they're what we're going to stick onto the vehicle. We're going to need a caliper rewind tool, so that's going to be unboxed in a minute. We'll look at that when we're into the job. I'm also going to need some releasing spray because I don't know what the state the bolts are in. I've got some Bulldog and I've got some WD-40 penetrating spray, so we're going to look side by side on them and see which one I think is the best. It's the first time I've used Bulldog, heard quite a lot about it. I'm going to need a socket set, and eventually I'm going to need a torque wrench. I'm going to need some gloves, basic PPE, and a couple of bits of wood. I've got a couple of chocks for the front wheel as well. But before I go any further on, I'm going to need something to get the rear end of the car up. So I'm going to use a trolley jack. I'm going to use this puck, which if you haven't seen these are really good. They protect the actual pinch weld of the seam at the bottom from getting folded in by a jack. And that enables me to lift the car nice and high and get some decent, good quality axle stands in. This video isn't sponsored by any of these people, but I'm using a lot of Halfords product because that's what I've got and that's what I've used for a long time. These Halfords advanced stands are really good. I use them with my pickup truck all the time. The torque wrench is a cheapo from, I think, Aldi. Not used it a lot, but you know, it's good practice to do it, so I thought I would. And I've got one of a packet of bulk buy gloves from Screwfix or something like that. This is a good bit of kit. It's just a generic kind of folding breaker bar, so it goes quite long, but then you can also just compress it back down so it goes in your boot without taking up loads of space. So that's a really good bit of kit. And we've got a 22 mil socket to get the wheel nuts off. So I'm going to stick you onto slow-mo, onto time-lapse I should say, and we'll get on with the next stage, which is going to be jacking up and getting the wheels off. Okay, so we've got the wheels off, and you can have a look on this side. The pad's not, the disc isn't too bad at all. It's got a bit of a lip at the top and the bottom. The actual pad itself, there's not a huge amount left on that. If I get my fingernail in there, you can see there's maybe a mil. There's not much on that at all, which is a bit of a surprise because this car was MOT'd before I bought it. And it did have an advisory on the pads, but yeah, that's not good. That's pretty low. Let's have a look on the other side. Right, here we go. Now this is a lot worse. So you can see the scoring on the actual disc. That scoring has been caused by the pad getting right down to metal, and you can actually see metal flakes on the top of the pad there. So if I put my fingers in there, I can knock some of those metal flakes off, and you can see now just how bad this has got. So this is critical. The other thing about this side is we've got the motor on the back end of this, and that motor does the electronic parking brake as well. So in all fairness, like this side possibly is getting a bit more wear, but yeah, the risk of not doing this is that not only does it sound pretty bad, but this disc is going to overheat with that friction, and yeah, potentially you're going to have a catastrophic failure when you least need it. So we're going to get into taking these calipers off, and I'll talk you through it. but I'm just going to get my penetrating spray and the next few tools I need, and then we'll get into it. So to take the actual brake calipers off so I can get access to the brake discs and the brake pads, I'm going to need a 30mm spanner. So I've got 30mm spanner plus a socket, that's on a mini breaker bar, plus I've got a ratchet just in case that's easier. Probably will be once I've got it undone. But before I do any of that, I did say I was going to have a look at the penetrating sprays I'll use. So normally I've used the WD-40 fast release, and I find this is pretty good. Tend to soak it on overnight, let it do its business, and then give it another squirt before I try to tackle anything that's maybe rusted or seized, and generally I've had good success with that. However, I've also seen BDX Bulldog being used, and this seems to get some pretty acclaimed reviews by people that are using it. So I entered a competition online, and they're very kindly, the makers BDX have very kindly sent me out 2 products. They sent me out the Bulldog that actually won, and then I inquired about another product which I'm not going to cover on this video, but I've also seen, so stand by for that. But right now I'm going to do a head-to-head between the Bulldog and the WD-40, and we'll see just on this very basic simple task which one we think is going to work best. But before we do that, I'm going to do a quick unboxing video on this, and we'll see what's in the pack. Inside here I'm expecting to find a pretty cool little Bulldog cage and 2 tubs of the actual Bulldog itself, and you can see what that looks like. So remove magnets from base of can before use. To lock, press firmly back on each side of the cap as above. Okay, so we've got a lockable BDX cap. Okay, so some instructions there, so we'll have to make sure we do that, but that's quite a good little feature to have. I'm going to put the product we're not going to cover to the side there. Let's have a look at the Bulldog cage and the actual Bulldog BDX itself. So that is quite a snazzy bit of kit, if I don't mind saying so myself. The actual product looks pretty good. So yeah, so we've got a proper aerosol. We've got a little cage there that's quite nice. Quite thin material, but you know, it'll work in a workshop. You can stick that up on a wall mount, or you could probably just fix it, you know, with a couple of sticky pads onto the back of or the side of a tool chest, and yeah, your product's going to go in there. Happy days, quite happy with that. It's quite smart. Looking at the actual products themselves side by side, so first thing to notice is the WD-40 is a much smaller can, 250ml. You can get it in bigger sizes. This is 400ml. Other than that, you've got the flick out straws on both of them. And then the only other feature, I guess, is that you've got the ability to spray. The nozzles are open without the straws on as well, so it'll actually spray out the front of both as well, so that's quite good. This has got no locking mechanism on the WD-40. This obviously does. I'll have a play with that when I'm using it, but it indicates on is forward, so maybe, yeah, so that's probably on, and then that's off. So that's quite easy to use, so it stays on if you want it on. And then I suppose if you've got it in a tool bag, it's not going to come on by accident, so that's a decent feature. So my plan on this is to do the top bolt and the bottom bolt in different products and alternate that on each side, just in case one product drips onto the other. It wouldn't be very scientific. It's only a few fasteners, so it's not going to be the most exhaustive test, but let's just see how it works. Okay, so looking into the area that we're going to be working in now, just a few things to mention. I've got a little offcut of 3mm ply just on the floor underneath the actual brake rotor itself. Does a couple of different things. It's something for me to kneel on, save me scuffing my jeans and protect my knees a bit, but it also stops any debris or crap from dropping onto the driveway. Not such an issue if you're in a commercial workshop because you can just sweep up, but not so easy here. Also, I find as well, if I've got poor light, it just helps me keep track of tools and stuff like that as well. If I'm laying out components, it's easier to see what I'm laying out in what order. Looking into the brake caliper itself, I've noticed there's actually the handbrake mechanism is on both of the rear brakes. Now I'm not familiar with these cars, so I've only heard the noise coming from the passenger side rear. So I will just check and make sure that I've got function on both of the handbrakes on, you know, once I've kind of made some headway with this job, but these won't change in anyway, so I'm going to crack on and get that done before I start worrying about the handbrake. I think, looking at it, that I've just got a bolt up here and a bolt under there to undo. The 13mm bolts, that should allow me to pull out this section of caliper and just release it off. I then want to tap out the actual brake pad itself on both sides, bit of copper grease on the back one. It doesn't hurt to do both, to be fair, because the actual carrier itself can squeak. So a bit of copper grease on the back of the new ones going on, and they should be good to go straight on. I can knock off the actual brake disc itself. With the new one, it's probably in some protective grease, so I've got some brake cleaner I didn't remember to pull out earlier, so I'll give that a good wipe with some brake cleaner before it goes on. And again, the plywood just means I've got a good surface to do that on without spraying brake cleaner everywhere. And then reassembly is just a reverse of putting it all on. Now sometimes you have to be careful with the electronic parking brakes, because you do sometimes need a tool to reset them. We'll see how we get on with this one. If I need a tool, I'll have to go and borrow one. But I think I'm okay with this model. I've done a little bit of research, I think I'm okay, but hey, we'll find out as we get on with the video. Right, I'm going to stick you back on time lapse. I'm going to get the product. So on this side I'm going to go Bulldog at the top and the WD-40 at the bottom. But before I do anything else, I'm going to stick my gloves back on. Okay, so first drama is I didn't actually press the record button on the time lapse, but these bolts came out fine. The top one on the actual carrier and the bottom one. The Bulldog, I have to say, it did pop off straight away. The bottom one took a bit more effort. Might not be the product, but yeah, definitely the top one came off easier on this one. What I've noticed straight away is the actual seals are quite badly corroded on the top. They look fine on the bottom. If we look inside the actual unit itself, you can see that you can't see anything if I hold the camera like that, but you can see if the top there of that seal is foobarred, that's going to want replacing before I put this back together. So that's a bit annoying, but it is what it is. Better that I find it now and I fix it rather than I've got a knackered caliper. Second problem is I want to get into these bolts now, which are 18mm. Classic. I've got a 17 and a 19mm spanner on me. Got an 18mm socket, but can't quite get it on because it's fouling on that. So as is often the way, I've got an 18mm spanner somewhere. I need to go and find that, and then we'll pick back up again. Okay, so I thought that little fucker was being a bit stubborn, but turned out there was a little grub screw that I had missed. The other side didn't have one, which is interesting, so that suggests to me that these parts were being changed separately rather than doing the same axle at once. So that's always a bit of a red flag, because then you start to think, okay, have they just done the bare minimum on the maintenance? What else am I going to find while I'm going around this vehicle? Happily though, the actual condition, so on the left of the screen is the rear side of the pad, of the rotor I should say, and on the right hand side is the front. You can see the front's probably got about 3mm, but the back's really healthy. That's got, I mean, it's still got its entire wear indicator available. So yeah, the pads on this side are okay, although very, very thin on the near side, you know, the front face I should say. The actual seals look okay, so in all fairness, don't need to do them, but depending on how the parts come, might do them anyway, just for peace of mind. Yeah, the seal on this side actually, again, I'm gonna have another look on the other side in a second, because it doesn't necessarily look as bad as I was worried it was. I don't want to put the weight on the cable, but I thought that bit was all torn on the other side. Maybe it's just the design, because that looks quite uniform. But yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of research into that and just see what the crack is. Overall, the condition of the actual body and then the actual carrier isn't too bad, but again, I'll just give this a bit of a clean up, and I might as well give it a dusting of stone chip while I'm at it. It's not going to hurt. So I'm going to get back on the time lapse. The other thing to talk about, sorry, the actual disc itself in really good nick, decent weight to it, nice and thick, wearing quite evenly, hardly any lip on the inside, only a slight lip on the outside. So yeah, again, probably much newer than the other side, but potentially that's the other side's wear is being caused by a fault, possibly that seal I've already identified. And then the actual stone guard on this side's actually really good. I think I'll give it a bit of a prep and paint anyway because I'm doing the other side, but you know, if I'd been changing these brakes and the other side looked like this, I wouldn't be touching them. They're absolutely fine. This is a little bit rustier, a little bit, oh no, sorry, wrong, that's just copper grease. That's good to see. There wasn't any copper grease on the other side, so that's good. So I'll give that a little clean up anyway. But yeah, that's just copper grease, which actually protects it from corrosion as well as being a good tip to stop any squeaking as well. So yeah, happy with this side. It's all looking a lot better. It's often the way, isn't it? Okay, so I've realised how dull watching paint dry is, so I'm going to speed up the rest of this. I have given everything a third coat of the rust proof primer, so it's all looking pretty well coated now. I'm not going to go to town on it. I'm not going to go too much on the prep because at the end of the day most of this won't ever be seen. It's just a protection coat. I'm going to bang on a dust coat now of the Hammerite stone chip, and what this is, it's quite a thick paint, so again you're never going to get the best finish on it, but it stops it from it stops components from getting easily damaged, and also is a good rust preventative measure as well. So I'm going to give the two carriers a dust coat, and also this side. I'll do the other side, I won't bother filming the other side. It'll be a dust coat, let that flash off, and a thicker coat probably after about 15 minutes or so. I'll let that dry properly, and then a proper decent coat on top of that. Let that dry properly overnight, and then tomorrow I can finish off these brakes. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll stick on time lapse. On the brakes, the actual seals are a bit of a mixed state. There's quite a lot of damage, you can see perhaps in there that the seals are split on the actual brake pad holders. Some of them are just coming straight off, not latched on at all, and some of them quite stiff. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a new seal kit for the whole of the brakes and rebuild them. Having looked at both of the actual calipers themselves, the seals are completely disintegrated, so I'm going to rebuild the brakes on this car essentially, which is fine. It's only about 15 quid's worth of parts, but the problem is it's 3 days delivery, so I'm not going to have this vehicle for the weekend. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly unbox the caliper pushback tool for doing rear brakes, essential for a vehicle like this. We'll have a look at that. That's come from Amazon, and we'll have a look at the quality of that, and then I'm going to knock this video on the head and get it out. And the next video on the brakes on this vehicle, we will have a look at putting everything back together, and I'll also do a video on how to rebuild the brakes themselves. So, bit of a hassle for me, but a bit of extra content and value for you guys. So let's get into this then. So first and foremost, what's the actual kit we've got? Well, it's the Katsu, made in China. Don't know what the quality on this is going to be like. It was well rated on Amazon, so it's obviously quite well packaged. Hopefully it's in some kind of carry case. A little bit of damage on the box, but I'm sure that won't actually affect the tools. And I paid for this myself, this isn't sponsored content or anything like that. So we've got kind of plastic ABS case, that's quite good. So straight away that's looking quite nice. It's going to sit in the corner of a collection. Okay, so the bits have kind of fallen all over the place a little bit here. Got a book of words. Let's just look at the actual components themselves. Got the different kind of connections for different configurations of brakes. Don't Don't quite know how all that's meant to work. 8 goes in there, where's 8? So it's going to look something like that. And to be fair, it actually look like once I've got that set up properly, things are going to stay in place, so that's quite good. That's your tools themselves. You've got left hand and right hand, because obviously you want to screw them both clockwise when you're pushing them in. The actual quality of that looks okay. So the way this would work is you stick a backing plate on. So it's going to go over like that. That's going to go inside the face. That's going to go up against the piston itself with whatever the correct attachment is, and you kind of screw that down to put initial tension on that plate, and then you push it away by screwing away with that. Looks okay. That isn't going to be the strongest bar, I don't think, but you don't need loads and loads of pressure to get these on. So that's looking good. The other thing I like is that's been machined to get a socket on if you need to kind of get it going with a bit of brute force. So yeah, so that looks absolutely fine. I think that's going to see us right for this job, and hopefully it will last for a fair bit longer. I won't do a referral link or anything like that for this video because I haven't actually used it yet, but I have to say I think it cost about 25 quid or something in that area, and I think it looks alright. If these little tabs work, then we're pretty happy with that. There's a book of words that I'll read before I use it in anger, but in essence that I think is a pretty decent addition to my toolkit. I'll use it properly on this job, and we'll have another look at it when we get to finish off the brakes, which is going to be next week now because of it being a weekend. The parts aren't going to get here till probably Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's me for now. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please, and do bang something in the comments just to let me know what you think. Little bit of overspray on the old driveway there. See if the missus notices. It'll all come off with a jet wash anyway.